Ben Namvar. Is that how you pronounce it?
Well, this is really funny. Okay, so basically, the way I would say my name is I would say Namvar, but obviously like the way you would pronounce it, like back in Iran, Persian heritage would be Namvar probably.
Yeah, like Persian
I have some
dads.
cousins that say Namvar.
Whenever we look at, the political world today, well, first of all, diversity of opinion is great, right?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I agree,
It's
100%.
one of the fundamental values of getting involved in government-related affairs, legislation.
And being able to freely speak your opinion.
Right, being
Yeah.
able to freely speak and not be afraid of doing so.
Exactly, yeah.
What do you think about the current political turmoil that's happened? We've all seen it unravel over the course of the past few months, not only in America, but specifically America, because for our viewers, they're specifically in America, but it's happened globally, right? It's happened all over the world. People are literally being killed because of their perceptions on certain policies, being canceled. We know cancel culture has been hot a lot, which is something we've discussed even before this podcast to make sure that, we don't get stuck into that as
Yeah.
well.
So personally, I'm a human being. I live in America. I have issues with both sides, and I obviously have some strong opinions about those, which I'm not going to share on this show. But what I think is worse than all of those is how it divides us rather than what it actually does. 10 years ago, our country wasn't like this, I don't believe. But I think the worst thing that has happened to our country, worse than, I don't know, I'm just going to name topics that people think are bad. Families getting separated at the border, racial inequality.
Any and all policies.
Any policies that you have a problem with. I think the climate change. The worst is the issue of people, such as I've been in this position too, being scared to just speak their opinion. At the end of the day, when you can't speak, then I think that's where the real problems arise. Because when people are suppressed, that's, I think, when they really become dangerous. Like, as a Jew, I've always obviously been against anti-Semitism. I think it's very relevant. But my perspective on approaching anti-Semitic talk has changed. This is just an example. Within like the past 2 years, like the wrong way could be more dangerous than not saying anything at all. I'm not saying we shouldn't say anything about it, but I'm saying the approaches that people have taken to certain political issues have been good-hearted, but I think they've led to unfortunate outcomes, whether they know it consciously or subconsciously. And I think this comes from all sides of the political spectrum.
And within the individual's life and within the people around them in society,
for sure.
that's being
like if you're like, especially with identity politics, like for example, like if you say like I'm part of this group and like you're generalizing groups, like that's, I think, when you've already lost. And that's like something that I personally like don't really agree with. Like even, and it comes from all sides. Like you say, oh, this guy's on the right, like I hate people on the right, like I can never be friends with people on the right. Or this guy's on the left, I can never be friends with people on the left.
And it speaks to basically what is your objective with calling yourself a certain thing, like you just said. But also like the way that the two-party system is designed is in a way that is not beneficial for anyone, because you have certain policies that you have to abide by and you have to agree if you want a certain party or candidate to win the election, right? So like, for example, I'll give you a couple of my stances, right?
Yeah.
I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
Relax. I'm pro-life. And I'm also anti-gun. Why can't I have a voice in the political system? I can't.
Yeah, of course.
I can't. I have to choose one or the other, right? Which one do I support more? I have to go abide by all those rules. I have my own diverse opinions, right?
We all do, yeah.
Right. The two-party system does not allow you to express.
And it also forces candidates to change their positions on stances just to get elected.
For example,
like for example, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, whether it's real or fake, like he changed a lot of his opinions whenever he went to run. And I feel like Joe Biden did the same thing. Like Joe Biden, whenever he was vice president with Barack Obama, he had many different stances than the ones he has today. And I think the reason is because you're trying to appeal to different voters.
Right.
And that's what the two-party system does, and it makes you appeal to one of two parties. Right. And even though, like, personally, I would agree with there's third-party candidates that I really like, but I know I can't vote for them because I know they would never win because they don't meet the qualifications to it. Like, no one's gonna vote for them. But at the same time, I think the two-party system does have a place. Out of all the countries in the world that are this big, I think the United States has a system in place that's honestly one of the best, one of the most efficient. Like, for example, if you look at Israel, they run through a parliamentary democracy system. And they're about to go do their third election in, I believe, like 2 years. Okay, and they still can't decide a leading party. They don't vote in leaders. They vote in a leading party because parties can't come to mutual agreements, and that's how it works. And it is really effective when it works, but when it doesn't, it's not.
Have you ever had to restrict yourself from speaking about policies in public for fear of being shut down, for fear of being canceled or
100%.
Shunned by society?
I was part of an extracurricular called Youth in Government. Long story short, we're in a meeting, and it's no secret that in California, it's obviously majority, I would say, like left-wing views, especially among high school students. So during our meetings, we would debate topics, and there would be many times where there wouldn't be a person on the side of the opposition to the left-wing approach to speak their side. And I would find that as a more right-wing person myself, I found that I had more right-wing views. Actually, through this program, I found that. Like, before, I had no stance. But I would find that every now and then, I would be that person to speak the other side. And I wouldn't be hated for it or anything like that. But I remember one time it got to a point, actually 2 times it got to a point, the director literally told me to stop talking. And after that, I was just...
The director?
Yeah, the director. It was not like the director of the whole program. It's like our delegation. It's only 150 people in our delegation.
Right.
So it's the director of that.
I mean...
She's a great woman. Very nice. I have nothing against her whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe what I said could be triggering. And I didn't see that the students had as much of a problem as some of the directors did. But it came to a point where, like we said, cancel culture can be very dangerous, and people get offended really easily these days.
Right,
it's really
and at this
sad
point, it
because,
doesn't matter what you believe, everything you say.
Yeah, because they would ask a question in a debate, and like how, and this is what I thought, and a lot of people thought, is that there wouldn't possibly be a way to debate the other side without offending someone.
Right. Oh my God, I agree completely. This is a quote from Jordan Peterson that I heard a while ago.
Yeah.
In order to have a genuine conversation, to be able to make positive change in the world, you have to risk being offensive.
Exactly.
In order to voice your opinion, in order to have and exercise your ability to speak freely, to think freely, you have to risk being offensive.
And I remember he said that to someone after they said, I think if it was Jordan Peterson,
right.
After they said
something offensive.
She
said something offensive.
She was like, what about my right not to be offended? At the end of the day, you don't have a right not to be offended. Like, you have a right not to be attacked. You have a right not to be physically assaulted.
Right.
If I'm your basketball coach,
right,
and you made a really, really stupid play, and I tell you that was a pretty stupid decision, you could be really offended. You could go home and cry about it. But you could either take that offense as, shit, bro, I'm going to quit. Like, why would I do this? Or you could take it as, you know what, I'm going to be like Kobe. I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm going to put in the work to become a better basketball player. So whether or not he meant to say that as like, you're a trash basketball player, at the end of the day, like, you don't want to be taking those shots. So you could even take like haters, which often have bad intention, to better yourself. It's like, you can't give the haters a reason to be right. And the haters, a lot of the time, even though they're hating, they could be very right. And at the end of the day, whether it's anti-Semites, anti-Israel people, whatever, when it comes to anti-Semitism, it's wrong. Anti any group of people for being born into something,
I agree,
in my opinion, is wrong. You can't be mad at someone.
Not even just for being born into something. I think instead of being anti anything, we should be pro something, right? Anti has that negative connotation where you're against anything in that group, which maybe there's some reasons to be against everything in certain groups. But generally, it's better to be pro something than to be anti something.
Yeah.
Because saying anti says, I reject your ability to do this and this, or believe this and this. But being pro something doesn't necessarily reject anything.
Yeah.
It just promotes something. And I think that's the positive connotation that we have to make sure we're putting into all of our words, into all of our
And at the end of the day, if
intentions.
you want to make the world a better place, I really agree with that. If you want to make the world a better place, you have to have conversations like what we're having now.
Right.
Like, I don't agree with everything you said.
No.
But like, how are we gonna like make the world a better place by saying like fuck you? Like, I don't agree with what you're saying. Like, we gotta have these conversations, and by saying you're anti anything, you're automatically shutting that down.